Hey y'all, join us, follow us, listen to us, connect with us at a rooted connection. I'm Alexandra.
And I'm Eddie.
This is an open conversation to not be ashamed of our backgrounds, but to be inspired by one another and to embrace the struggles that have made you strong, rooted, and connected to your truth.
We want to take you on a journey back to the past, deep into our roots of our lives that might have influenced us along the way, or the way we think, feel, speak, and love.
Life's been a little rough. I think it's about time that we kind of talk it out. This is our therapy for the week.
Definitely.
So I wanted to talk about marriage and masculinity and dealing with the male and the female in a Hispanic household, being that we're both Hispanic, because I am so afraid to get married. And I think it's something we're all going to have to deal with at some point in our lives. We all want to get married, or we've been married, or we are going to get married. How do you feel about marriage?
Well, for me, being gay, I think it's just hard to touch on that.
To picture yourself.
Yeah, so I just I feel like I can definitely express more on the topic later down the line, but yeah, it's just kind of hard, not being the son your father would have wanted. So yeah,
right. And I think that has to do with the masculinity in our family and the machista part of being from a Hispanic Mexican background, where men are machistas. They run the household and their masculinity has to be shown, and the woman just stays home and they cook for their kids and they clean for their husband and they fold their clothes. And I think that made society what it is today, because now we're so feminist and equal rights and gay marriage and blah blah blah. So I feel like the machista aspect of our backgrounds has made, I guess, pushed forward our society.
Yeah, it's crazy because I can't even feel comfortable with my relatives. They all knew I was different when I was little, but everyone was just very macho, and everyone was everyone's a gardener in my family, the uncles and older cousins. And so me not going through that and learning how to work, and being macho, I feel I felt a little looked down upon, because maybe people thought I didn't know what real hard work was like with your hands and you're being tough. It's a part of the culture. And I feel like people just saw me as sensitive and quiet and would just push me away because I wasn't I guess manly enough, or a bro.
And it's crazy how we grow up knowing those standards of being a man and a female. Females are emotional and men are not. And as a man, you do have to live up to what your dad is or what men are in your family. I have a little brother and he has 3 older sisters who probably made him the most clean and sensitive little kid ever. And that's part of my sisters. I feel like we made him that way. We babysat him. We were his friends growing up. I'm not saying he's a feminine little kid, no, but he cleans after himself, he cooks for himself. And sometimes my dad will give him shit for it, because as a dad, it kind of ruins your ego that your son is not being manly. He's not being my brother will cry for something and my dad doesn't want him to cry for it, because he didn't cry about it before. And when I first got my first job and I was getting harassed, I remember thinking to myself, I am not about to say that I'm getting harassed, because that's what they expect from a girl. We're sensitive and it's expected for us to complain about, or that we feel uncomfortable, because that's what girls do. And I remember not complaining because of that. And that has a lot to do with the masculinity that we grew up in. That's what we're used to. That's what we were fed off of. And in many ways, I'm thankful for it, just because we're aware of what it is. And when I look for someone to marry, that's something that I'm going to be aware of. You know what I mean? And I'm sure you too.
So for me, I am just scared to bring my first partner to a family party, and I'm afraid of what my cousins and relatives and aunts are going to say, because like a lot of them, are very traditional, and perhaps they don't want their children to know what someone like who's gay and what it is, and like it's just a very sensitive and touchy subject for a lot of traditional Hispanic families. So like I just feel like every time I go to a family party, I can't be myself. Like I'm so quiet, and I like reserve myself from everyone. And yeah, I'll pick up a conversation with a relative, like I'll definitely engage, but like I think it's so frowned upon if I like would bring my partner, well, when I have one, to a party and like see what they're gonna say. I do have a couple of older like gay cousins, but like they don't really bring their partner around. One of them did um introduce like his partner to like some people, and people like knew that they were together, but or I think he was just introduced as a friend, but like if you knew, you knew, and if you didn't, then that other guy was just a friend. But um like I wish I could do that, where like I could just bring someone and like just feel comfortable, but then kids are gonna be like questioning, and then it's like that's when their parents are like gonna have the talk they didn't want to have. So it's like sad. And I just like wish that I could feel comfortable like being at a family party, but I don't at the end of the day. So I don't really like, people ask why I don't attend parties, and it's because of that. I just feel like I can't be myself. And I made a big risk a couple weeks ago. I went to a family like get together, and I wore like a handbag kind of thing that I've like found at Ross. But like a lot of the like older men in the family that are probably like in their 40s, like they just looked at me and like kind of like gave me a face like, oh, he's wearing a purse, but it's not a purse, it's just like a little satchel. And so I mean, it was a big risk for me to do that, but I wanted to do that to like kind of see what they were going to say, because it's like I have to slowly learn to be myself around them, so that way they can accept it. And if they don't, then whatever, like I have to move on. But essentially I just like I'm just scared to bring my future partner to like parties, or I think about like marriage, and I don't even know what to think. Like I'm just like, well, who would I invite? Like who would be comfortable like going, and like what would people say? Like are they gonna I feel like I would know who doesn't accept it if they don't attend the wedding. Um and I think that's when I'll know who I can share my life with and who I have to stay pretty much reserved with. And yeah, that's pretty much my story to it. But aside from like growing up as a kid, like my dad would always have me cleaning. Like every Saturday he would wake me up super early just to go clean, like wash the dishes, throw out the trash, like clean up the backyard, go wash his car, wash my laundry, mop, clean the bathrooms, vacuum. It was a lot. I was like cleaning dishes like 3 times a day. But
It's crazy how that fear that you have, like I have it too, when it comes to like bringing a friend over, a significant other over, and me being a female, I'm straight, I'm normal, like I'm not this person who's weird and likes weird people. And it's always that like the reaction to a Hispanic person, a Hispanic parent would probably be, are you confused? Like, are you sure you're gay? Like, and for me, when it comes to making my decisions for myself, I always get that from my parents too, and not necessarily in the because I am not gay, but when it comes to other things, it's always like, are you sure? Like, are you sure that that's your friend? Are you sure that you want that? Are you sure you want to do that? So I have that fear too of the reaction that my family would give to my significant other. So then I'd imagine your fear of taking someone and having that fear of making them uncomfortable around your family, you know. But I think that's where that fear comes from, is from the masculinity that we grew up with, because I always grew up with this weird fear of bringing a significant other over, but I was also so scared of asking my dad for permission to do anything. And it's that fear of that, like, he's gonna yell at me, he's gonna say no. I mean, the worst that's gonna happen is he's gonna say no. But I always had this weird fear. I think it's weird now because I'm like, what the fuck was I afraid of? Like, why was I scared? But I always had this fear. Like, I'm very sensitive. I'm a Cancer. I'm emotional. I feel everything. I cry for everything. So just even feeling my dad's anger or like frustration towards me, or you know, like a harsh no or whatever, a disappointment from him, it felt so much worse from him than it did for my mom. And I used to always question why. I was always more afraid of him than my mom. And now that I sit back and reflect on it and I connect myself to like what it is that I feel now, it's like always felt that fear of like a man being scared of me more than a woman for some reason. And I still feel that in different ways. I'm more afraid I was always more afraid of my male bosses, managers, than I was of my females. I don't know why. And it just, to me, now that we sit here and talk about it, it just connects to my upbringing and like the way we always had to respect our dads more than our moms. Like, even our moms were scared of our dads. Like, what the fuck? My mom used to buy clothes, go shopping, and she used to hide the clothes in my room. She used to walk in and be like, take all the bags to your room. Like, go hide them in the room because we're afraid of our dads. Why is it that when my brother would get in trouble, it'd be like, I'm gonna tell dad. Do you want me to tell dad? It was always like a threat to, like, my mom would threaten me like that. She'd be like, I'm gonna tell your dad, because we weren't afraid of our mom. And it's crazy to think now that that's how much it's affected me, because it even affects me till this day with any guy. Doesn't even matter if it's like a guy that I'm interested in, a guy who's my teacher, a guy who's my friend, whatever it is. I just expect that side of them because of my dad, I guess. That's actually probably why I'll never get married. I don't know. I'm a little scared of that. I think it also makes me question how I'll parent, like the type of parent I'll be. Because I would never want my son to feel like entitled, to be a jerk, like to be a super male, like a guy that thinks, you know, he knows it all. I don't know. I'm sure too, though. I'm more than sure that every, you know, different backgrounds, but every ethnicity, every culture probably has some type of, you know, the man runs the household. Like I said before, I feel like in today's society, we've moved so much forward compared to the way our parents grew up. Our lives are completely 180, and it's so hard sometimes for the old school generations to understand what it is now. There's a lot to catch up on, you know. Men nowadays already know that women have their own businesses. There's single moms, there's remarried moms, there's single moms that go to school and go to work and, you know, have their own business and then do this before work and do this after work, and they work out. Like, who doesn't work out nowadays? I feel like everyone's hopped on that train too. So, you know, what you name it, we've done it, you know. And I feel like nowadays men have to have higher standards for themselves. I've seen in my family, you know, there's a mixture of many ages, and my mom has a sister who's, you know, close to age with my older sister, so she's pretty young. She's my aunt, but she's young, and her marriage is completely different from all her sisters, from all her siblings, because she's the youngest. And she works for the county. She has her own job, I mean her own business at home, and she went to school, and she has kids, and she runs 2 businesses on Instagram, and you know, she does it all, and she like um she's a very hands-on mom, and her husband, my uncle, he doesn't work. And it's different. I think for me, it always, I like to, I'm always intrigued by like just observing people's like marriages and like comparing. I'm very nosy. Like I just like to, I like to compare, mostly when it comes down to like my parents. I always observe my parents' marriage and I look up to their marriage. I would love to have a marriage as long as theirs, and my aunt and uncle as well. I would love to have their marriage. I would look up to their marriage too, but it's so different from my parents. And their ages are different, and the way they parent is very different. And my aunt works, my uncle doesn't. So my aunt, she wears the pants in the relationship. Let's be real. You know, she runs everything. She makes the most money. And in my family, my dad makes the most money. And I always compare the way that our generations like have completely switched up. And I always tell my parents too, because my dad has a hard time understanding the way we think nowadays. He always says, "You guys think so weird nowadays. Like, I don't know what the heck you guys are on." And I told him, "Well, that's what you moved over here for. That's why you migrated across the border to live over here, to have a different life. Like, I don't know how our parents expect, or and in this case I'll speak for myself because I'm not sure how your parents view it, but my dad always says, you know, like, or why don't you ever want to get married, or why don't you want to have kids, or like, why this, why do you think like this, or why are women like this, and the Trump and the voting and the blah blah blah, the Black Lives Matter and the writing, all of that." And he always like doesn't understand what we're coming from. He thinks very much the way he thought back then. My mom's adapted a little bit. My mom gets it a little bit more. And I always tell him, like, why did you move over here to give us a better life? And then when we try to get a better life, you guys don't like it. And it's the same thing with men, you know, like when my aunt started getting all these businesses and she started, you know, making money for her family because my uncle got laid off, it almost killed his ego. You know, like it was almost like a confidence, um I guess, killer in a way, because your wife is making more than you. You know, you're at home with the kids while she's working. And he admitted to it. He said, "Yeah, you know what?" Kind of hurt my feelings. You know, I'm the man. I'm supposed to be working. And that almost shook me, because it's like you kind of thrive for that, but in many ways you wouldn't want to kill your significant others. At least me being a female, and me picturing myself married and making more money than my husband, I think that would probably hurt his feelings. What do you think?
I just feel like there's so much to like go off from that because like my sister's friend, like she's single and she has two kids from two different guys, and
Mm-hmm.
so we're babysitting the youngest baby. She's here right now, but like it's just crazy, like just seeing her like just work nonstop and just dropping her kids off here like every morning, and she just looks like so exhausted. So she's kind of filling the roles of like a parent, like two parents, like a mom and a dad. So it's just like, you know, shout out to her. Like she's killing it. And I don't know, I just like, I see my cousins, like a couple of them are, you know, not with their partners, but they're still like, you know, killing it and like working and just hustling to just give their kids a better life. And I don't know, like I see my parents, like my dad, he's always like working. My mom used to work to help, you know, pay, make ends
Mm-hmm.
meet for all of us. Um, but she doesn't work anymore, so it's been a lot on my dad to like work. And right now, like since I'm going to school, I'm not making that much money. Um, especially now with being on unemployment, it's like I still have bills to pay. I might
Mm-hmm.
not be paying rent, but like I'm still paying like credit cards and like putting in
Yeah.
gas in my car. Just like the
Trying to keep
necessities.
up with life.
Yeah, just those necessities you need every week to get
Mm-hmm.
around and to get through life. Yeah, exactly. So even like going out, like you need some cash to go out and have fun. But
Oh,
to,
definitely.
yeah, but to stay on topic, like I just feel like once I have a partner, I feel like it's more about like balance instead of
Mm-hmm.
like seeing the traditional like setup of like the man making the money and the wife being at home. Like like every night my dad comes home and he's like telling my mom like where's like the dinner, like like the
Mm-hmm.
cena, or like he's always calling my mom for things that he can do on his own. um
Right.
so it's just like crazy about like that machismo of like the man who's making the money
It's
calls the
so deeply
shots.
rooted.
Yeah, it's crazy,
It's
but
so
that's the
deeply
Mexican
rooted.
life.
I feel like we all kind of naturally would probably want, in some way, a traditional marriage. Where, what do you think about failed marriages?
Ooh.
I think I used that term wrong because I don't think failed marriages are failures. So I'll put my perspective out there. I don't think that because you get divorced, it means you failed your marriage. Sometimes it's probably best that you get divorced. It's probably best that you're separated, because I truly believe that love is a drug. And, drugs don't always do you the best service. And drugs kind of mess up your conscience and your way of thinking straight. I'm sure everyone has gone crazy for love and has done stupid shit for somebody. So sometimes, I know growing up, you hear stories that you didn't know of, before you were born, long before, when my parents were single or when they were just getting married. I hear these stories like about what my dad did to my mom and the way my mom found out and blah, blah, blah. And I was always like, Mom, why in the world didn't you just leave? Like, why didn't you just like leave him? Like, why did you stay? And she's like, well, because if I would have left, you wouldn't have been here. And I'm like, well, fuck it. Well, maybe that's what was meant to be. And she was like, yeah, but what was I supposed to do? Where was I supposed to go? And I was like, shit, really? Like, it was like that? Because nowadays, a girl leaves and a girl leaves. She has many places to go. And I know for a fact that if my sister were, God forbid, to leave her marriage, she'd have a place to go. And she could come to my house. She could go. She has many options. But then it's like, did my mom not have those options? Or was it just like the fear of like leaving your marriage? It's so, like, it's looked down on. Like, if you want to leave somebody for whatever reason. And that's actually, and to get personal, that's happening in my family right now, where one of my aunts and uncles, they're going through it. And it's like that thing, like in a Hispanic family, the parents never want to let the kids know what's going on, and it's like whispers everywhere. And I look around and I remember, I last night, literally, I told my mom, like, what if it's a good thing? What if they're separating for the best reasons? And it still kind of blows my mind that it's so hard for a marriage to like just not work out. It's almost sad. It's like a breakup for everyone in the family, because you're breaking up with somebody that you thought was going to be in your family forever. But sometimes I want to change the perspective and not look at it badly. Like, what's your perspective on a breakup or a divorce, a separation, etc.? What do you think?
I feel like it's very depressing because obviously those two people like had feelings, strong feelings for each other, and it's like it's ending, and it's like there's this confused state of like, well, what's next? If it's over, like what do I do with my life now? But I think it's like fine because life keeps going and you just have to kind of, it's going to be hard, but just kind of go through with the change. And
Mm-hmm.
I think like in life, like when something you have like gets taken away, it always gets replaced with something better. So I guess I definitely support like a divorce, but also like if things can be worked on to like get better, then yeah, like totally stay together. But if it's not for the right reasons, then you should go. But I feel bad because some people don't like have that support still. Like with my parents, like I found out my dad was talking to other women on Facebook when I made him a Facebook, and I felt like such a burden. I was like, oh my God, like I'm the one that made him this account. And I knew his password. And so like I just like looked up on his messages one day, and I like ran upstairs and I showed my sister the messages, and like we were both in shock that my dad was just talking to other women. And so like all this anger was just building up, and I like finally had hit a breaking point. And I yelled at my dad one day after church, like, "Oh, who's like?" And I said the name. "Who is that? Who is that?" And then he like made a face like, "Oh, he knows." And my mom, I like told my mom, and she was in denial, like she didn't want to believe it. Um, so I feel like if my mom and dad would have like divorced, like my mom doesn't really know where to go because she, at the time, this was like 5, probably 8 years ago. Like she wasn't working. Like she has nowhere to go if we were to like to all separate. So, um, but I mean now, like it's just crazy, like how they're still together, but like they made it work. Maybe they never really talked about it. Maybe they did, but I don't know because my mom never really talked about it with me. But I just never forget the look on her face of like how much in denial she was and in shock. Um, but yeah, like I remember like asking one of my cousins after church, like, what do I do? Like, my dad is talking to other women. Like, I just feel like this is all my fault. And so she was just there supporting me. But like, all my aunts and uncles were like looking at us talk. And so they all knew something was wrong. So I'm pretty sure everyone in the family found out what my dad did. A lot of people don't really like my dad from my mom's side. And that's all the family we really have here in like SoCal is my mom's side of the family. My dad just has a like one brother that lives in the same city here, but yeah, he only comes once in a while. But it's just crazy. Like my uncle got divorced, and he has like 3 kids and was paying like child support, but he still acts pretty like macho. He's a little like godo, but like he still acts very
Mm-hmm.
I think he just thinks for himself financially, and like doesn't really understand that it's okay to spend like money. So I don't know. I don't know. I just like don't even know what to say anymore because like this subject is just so touchy with like being
That's
macho defines who
actually
you are.
very like traumatizing to go through, to like possibly catch your dad cheating, or to possibly catch your dad, like that would have broken me. That is insane. And I'm sure I would have felt just as guilty if I would have made him that Facebook account. And wow. And then at the age too that you were at, you're already older to think for yourself and to navigate your own thoughts, and like, but that is so scary. I actually didn't go through that myself, but have a friend here locally, and one of my other friends and my cousin worked together at a restaurant, and they saw our friend's mom on a date, not with my friend's dad, like her mom was on a date with some guy. And I remember my cousin and my friend texted me, and I was in San Francisco. I was not living here. I was back in San Francisco living my best life. And they called me to tell me what they saw and who they saw and what was going on. And I was completely shocked, and I felt so bad for my friend because I said, what the fuck? Like, that's her mom with not with her dad. If that was my mom, doing that, I would have been pissed, like super like aggravated. And that's one thing too that I guess I take out of all that, is that we all have such different situations, you know, like that's something I know supposedly me. I mean, who knows? That's something I know my mom would never do. I would expect it more from my dad. And for my friend, it was the other way around. You know, that's her mom. And it's hard for me to imagine my mom doing those things. So I remember being so hurt for her, almost being like embarrassed for her, like shit, you know, like she's sitting at home not knowing anything. And my cousin and my friend kept asking, you know, should we tell her? And I said, you know what? God forbid that's my mom, because if that's my mom, I would fucking want you to tell me. Like, I would never want you to hide that from me. So, yeah, they told her. And it was just the saddest thing. Like, unfortunate. I almost feel, and it's not none of our fault, you know. We kind of just delivered the message that we saw, that we got, because eventually they put my name in it too. Like, it was just more of like they put me in there for comfort, you know, like to try to comfort my friend after she found out what she found out. But it's almost like I felt responsible, because they asked me if they should tell her, and I said, well, yeah, you guys should. And that family, I would say, is no longer a family. Like, after all that happened, I don't, you know, her parents' marriage didn't end well, I guess. But it's almost like if we would have never said anything, who knows if they would have still been together or not. And as for your mom and your dad's situation, if I could touch back on it, it's almost like if your mom had the option, if she had the finances, if she had her like more support, I'm sure she would have probably left, you know. And it's sad to think that's exactly how it happened with my mom. Like, she didn't leave because she couldn't, and I'm sure they convinced themselves that they wanted to stay, but it was more of like the no option to leave. And that's why I'm so thankful for how far, I guess, women have come in general, because nowadays a girl will leave and she will never look back. And we all know that there's plenty of fish in the sea. And, you know, it's almost like an on to the next thing. So I don't know, reflecting, I always tell my mom too, like, Mom, like, you know, you don't have to like go through that anymore, right? Like, you know, you could just say no. Nowadays, no one really cares. Where back then, women had to deal with so much shit.